Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Minecraft Build the Earth Winston Salem. Last episode we worked on the O'Hanlon building, and in between episodes I made a few changes. I changed the red terracotta to a combination of gray terracotta and brick. The previous palette was far too red for a building like this. I also went back and added some window details. I might go in and change those at a later date. And I also added the shells to a few of these smaller buildings surrounding it. But we have something much bigger to work on today. Yes, in today's episode we are tackling the building next door, 1 West 4th. This is a large office building taking up an entire block of downtown Winston, and as you can see here I've already done the shelling methods we went over last episode to create these line layouts. So let's not waste any more time and jump right in. And remember, if you like this episode and want to see more videos in this series, be sure to hit that like button and of course subscribe. Set those post notifications to all so you're informed on every video as it comes out. So I started by making these colorful rectangles you see here. I used a different color of wool for each of them because they're all set at a different height. And I recorded these heights on signs here so I wouldn't have to keep referring to Google Earth. I used a new command I learned to bring a tower of each section up to height. By pressing K in the Terra 1-to-1 mod, the coordinates of the block you're looking at appear in the middle of your screen. No more having to open up the F3 menu. We're evolving, ladies and gentlemen. I messed up a few times because of course I did. Oh boy, it's time to start shelling. I started with the gold outline here in the front and used the /replace caret command to bring the entire section up to height. It's important that when you shell, you use materials that aren't present in builds around you, lest you want to end up breaking something you've previously built. Because I'm me, I failed to select the entire gold area, so I had to replace the last few blocks manually. Next, I added these 2 blue towers up front. Also remember to remove your signs before shelling, or else horrible things will happen. Stack it up, son! Repeat that same process on the other side and we're on our way. These shells will end up overlapping, so eventually we'll have to go in and gut the entire building. But that's a problem for future Daniel. Before you know it, it's time to shell the magenta. I went around and selected the entire region of the building. I leave a lot of stray glass blocks when making different world edit selections. If that bothers you, oh well, glass blocks are just a part of the skyline. Oh no, I didn't select low enough. This problem can be solved by digging a small tunnel into the ground. And don't worry about filling in holes like these. Slapping a grass block on top is just as effective, and what people don't know won't hurt them. I got kicked from the server for spamming the same command over and over again. Well, ain't that just something? Guess we gotta finish this part by hand. Golly me, it's time for the lime wool. A bit slower this time so I don't get kicked. I got kicked again. I realized at this point that I built the tiny front towers in the main part of the building out of the same blue wool. I don't know why I did this, so I took this opportunity to change the front towers to white concrete. Now it's time to bring up the last shell, right after we reselect our entire region again. Look at that, I found a little cave so I don't have to dig another little tunnel into the ground. Sometimes the Lord provides. I went much slower on this last command binge and I didn't get kicked this time. And there you have it, now we have our whole shell done. Half the battle is over. With our entire region selected for the 3rd time, it was time to replace the front towers with sandstone. But oops, I built with white concrete, which, if you didn't know, cannot be isolated from other colored concrete blocks, so I ended up taking a good chunk of the nearby roads with me. I also replaced this gold section with sandstone and started adding in windows, just making sure the windows would be spaced out properly before we commit to this full shell. The windows on the lime wool section worked out perfectly, so I just repeated the pattern on the other side. The hardest part about building at angles like this is you can't just copy and paste patterns from one side of a building to the other. The rise run is slightly different on either tower, so you just gotta do it manually. Time to grab some stairs, quartz stairs to be exact. The building has these overhanging lips atop the tall towers. I used 2 sets of upside down stairs to represent this. Oops, I changed my mind and made it into birchwood. Birchwood makes for a really good weathered terracotta look. Not perfect, but good enough for this project. Mojang, please, I am desperate for more beige blocks. Gotta add in these little corners. Remember what I said earlier about not being able to copy and paste patterns from one side of the building to the other? I copy and pasted the overhang to the other tower because I'm not very smart. It took me all of 10 minutes to realize this wasn't going to work, and I had to delete and rebuild the entire second overhang from scratch. You'd think after doing this for nearly 2 years I'd be better at this, but that would require skill and intelligence. I replaced the top section of each tower with birchwood and put gray terracotta where appropriate. Gray terracotta is going to give us that nice maroonish brown that appears throughout a lot of this city. I became worried that the color scheme was too similar to the Neeson Tower nearby, but then I remembered who cares. Hey, look at that, it's starting to look like the look-alike. Time to start gutting this building like a fish. I started manually taking out the magenta section before I remembered that commands were a thing. Almost made the copy and paste mistake again. Man, those towers are looking nice. So nice in fact that I went ahead and added the roof. Some of the reference pictures I found showed a black roof and others showed a white roof. And while I couldn't specifically date any of the pictures, all the photos of the black roof were pre-2013, so concrete it is! Time to add more windows in. The windows throughout this whole build were incredibly cooperative. I only had one issue with the windows on the lower section, but you'll see that when it happens later. That's the wrong level to stop the birchwood at, Daniel. Thank you, that's much better. Can't forget to gut! I went around and tried to eliminate these lighting errors that happened as a result of cutting out blocks. I obviously missed a few, but that's okay because they will not be the last. I began to work on the front facade. The front center of the building has some tiered ledges and balconies that I would have no trouble imitating. But then, the unthinkable happened. My line wasn't lining up. I needed this front wall to connect halfway between two of the windows on either tower, but if I stuck to the correct rise and run, the line wouldn't add up. I spent about 15 minutes trying to figure this out before I eventually said screw it and decided to leave it for another day. Because that's what we do here on Build the Earth. We run away from our problems. I worked on more windows. Windows are nice, they're my friends. The windows do what they're told. Not too shabby looking from the side there. I took some time to fix up the color palette a bit. Yep, that's looking building alright. I used a bit of duplication on the other side of the building so I wouldn't have to carve out every single window. I suppose I deserve this. Oh, what have I done? It must be later because I started having trouble with the lower windows. Most of the windows here are 3 blocks wide with either 1 or 2 blocks between, depending on how much I have to split the difference. I figured out a pretty good pattern for the lower section of the building, but then I realized it wouldn't work because of these larger windows and doors below them. So do I make this... I don't know. See, these sections of brick between the windows are supposed to line up with the lower windows. Mine were not. Only about 20 minutes of frustration later, and I eventually figured it out. I decided to reward myself by adding the roof. It's those little things in Build the Earth that keep you motivated. Not too shabby at all. Another day passed and I decided to revisit the front facade. I figured a day away from the keyboard could help me clear my head and come up with the solution I would need. I ended up shrugging my shoulders and saying screw it, because honestly, who's gonna notice? That's my policy on Build the Earth. Try everything you can to make it right, but if it's wrong, no one's gonna ever find out. I suppose except all of you who are watching this that are probably gonna go down to the comments right now and say something like, wow Daniel, I can't believe your connection points are 1 block off. Only a loser messes up his rise and run. You are not good at game. I didn't just give up, okay? See, I even tried to reconnect the outside of the towers only to realize that the error in this building was so deep that if I wanted to fix it, I was gonna have to start over from scratch. That's simply something I'm not going to do. See, once I add the balcony, you can't tell that there's a fatal flaw within this building. I added some wall blocks here to add a bit of spice to the building, and I even got to add the last bit of roof. I chose to do it by hand, and it was incredibly cathartic, especially after the hell that was that front facade. Once I got the last set of windows in there, everything really began to come together. Oh, look at her. She's magnificent, isn't she? Now comes the best part of the entire process, the decoration stage. I won't go too into detail about the decoration process because it's usually building something and then undoing it and then realizing that you were better off before and then retrying it, but I'll go over a few of them. I added a few sections of sandstone to help spice up the color palette. There are these little lines of terracotta on the building, and I found the best way to represent that was to sink in a layer of blocks and add some birch slabs, and I gotta tell you, I think it's one of my favorite detailings I've ever done. Repeat that process through the whole building and add some unnecessarily complicated windows in, and pretty soon you'll have gone from a bunch of chromatic lines on the ground to something like this. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Remember to like and subscribe and make sure those notifications are set to all. This was a pretty big project. It took a total of 6 hours to do from front to back. I think next time I'll choose an easier building to do just so I can get it out to you guys quicker. So tune in, and as always, my name is Daniel, and I will see you guys next time.